Hello, I am thirteene, and this is 8-Rack. So 8-Rack is a fan favorite in Modern. What this deck is trying to do is make our opponent discard all cards in hand. It's about as black as it gets in Magic. What we're going to be doing is basically putting our opponent out there, make them suffer from not having any resources. The rack is the original card that actually had this effect on it. So what it's going to do is when it enters, we get to choose an opponent. During that player's upkeep, it deals X damage to that player, where X is 3 minus the number of cards in his or her hand. So as they get less cards, this gets significantly better. Then Shrieking Affliction was printed at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep. If that player has 1 or fewer cards in hand, he or she loses 3 life. So typically for a deck to become a thing in Modern, you basically need 2 versions of a card that are cheap and have duplicate effects. So it's called 8-Rack because we get to run 8 copies of this effect. This is about as black as it gets, though, because we're going to be throwing our opponent on the rack, stretching it, making them suffer, no resources, slowly torture them to death. And Liliana the Vel is quite possibly the best for this. So, very powerful Planeswalker for newer players. She's actually fantastic, despite the fact that both players have to discard a card. Typically, we draw, we do something for a turn, we make each other discard. If your opponent's running out creatures, you end up making them sacrifice them, and you just stay ahead of the curve. Meanwhile, this deck is going to be damaging them for having no cards in hand. To back up this game plan, we end up running a suite of discard. Thoughtseize and Inquisition are going to be discards of our choice. Smallpox is a fantastic 3-for-2 in this deck. Ideally, what's happening is your opponent's running out their land, a mana dork, and then you end up smallpoxing, getting rid of whatever they just committed to board, and then they have to discard a card from hand. This is a great way to just take resources off the battlefield. Thoughtseize and Inquisition are going to be interrupting our opponent, basically getting rid of whatever combo piece they're doing. Part of the issue with the current meta in Modern right now, though, is so many decks utilize the graveyard, and we're trying to make these 1-for-1 interactions. Dredge and Arc-like Phoenix are probably going to be our worst matchups. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I do feel like this deck is a fan favorite. It occasionally places well, but it's probably just dodging bad matchups. Like, this deck is very powerful and can do some great things, but there are so many decks in Modern that are flexible, can attack on different axes, so you have to hit the right matchups for this deck to do well. This is kind of my own homebrew, though. Not homebrew. This is my own variant of it. So I'm adding red. Part of that is for Kolaghan's Command. This is very powerful, as well as instant speed discard. So we can actually use Kolaghan's Command kind of like a one-sided smallpox. We get to destroy a creature, make them discard a card on their draw step. Fatal Push is going to remove any of the early creatures. Again, we're doing 1-for-1 removal. And then because the rack effects actually deal damage in chunks of 3 minus X and 3 life, we end up running Mutavault as a way to chip in additional damage. And this is 8-Rack. So one of the things that I put in here is 2 copies of Squee. I didn't make a highlight spot for Squee, but at the beginning of our upkeep, if Squee's in our graveyard, we can pick him up. Awesome discard target for Collective Brutality or Liliana. And that is 8-Rack. So let's actually update our match. I was trying to run Oops All Leylands, and it was not going well, so I decided to go something a little more competitive here. And we would love the play. Occasionally, when people play against this deck, they take the draw just that they have the additional card. I don't actually believe that's correct for us, because what we need to do is Thoughtseize whatever they care about here. So I'm good to keep this. Unfortunately, we really need another land out of this, and it looks like we're currently running 10, 13, 17, 19, 23 lands. So, yeah, we have a decent shot at a land, but we have 2 discards, a way to win the game, powerful Liliana, and Smallpox is actually probably going to hurt us here, but let's see what opponent's doing. Alright, so they are on Tron. They currently have 2 pieces of Tron and no way to go tutor, so I'm going to try to take their Sylvan Scrying, and we're hopefully going to keep them off of mana. Smallpox is going to be great here to get rid of one of their Tron lands. But this is kind of a bad matchup because they eventually end up hitting their critical mass and top deck a threat. They do have to invest a lot of cards into their strategy, though. Alright, well, let's go ahead and dismiss this. We're going to take the other Sylvan Scrying, and they found a redundant mine. which means this smallpox would have been great this turn, but unfortunately we hit a colorless source. Alright, so our rack's not going to be effective quite yet. They have 6 cards. If we draw a swamp here, we'll be quite happy. Nope, got a Shrieking Affliction. Alright, well, gonna run it out. And hopefully opponent just doesn't natural Tron us, because that'd be super sad. Smallpox just lost a lot of value, though, because they can now sack their second source. Oh, please get us another black, sir. That'd be so kind of you. No? Maybe? Alright, that works. So, Liliana's coming down. I just want to empty their hand as fast as possible. Smallpox, they're just going to sack Field of Ruin, and we will be empty-handed hopefully by the time that we cast Smallpox. And they discarded Karn. So they have one unknown in hand. I can't imagine they drew a redundant Karn, though. I would be discarding Ugin first myself, although Ugin coming down and minusing is probably the end of the game. Yeah, that works for me. In fact, that's going to get us a red source. Alright, so we did discard 2 Sylvan Scryings. It's possible that they drew Ancient Stirrings. There's a star. And the fact that they just use their star here means that our Smallpox will actually be able to hit. Oh. Alright, Smallpox is going to be bad at this point. So, there's a redundant mine. I can K-Command or Smallpox, but no matter which land they sack, they can still Ugin. I'd love to be able to destroy this expedition map, but there's no way they're going to let me. Yeah, Ugin's going to come down and be a problem. So I think right now our best bet's just make them discard twice. Then they'll discard the Worm Coil. We get Ugin. They'll have an active Ugin. We'll have a rack. Yeah, that's not going to work. Alright, well, let's go ahead and Smallpox. Yep, we're going to discard our K-Command. They'll probably get rid of their forest here, potentially their second mine. And we just drew one of our red sources, so I'm going to get rid of our mountain. Or just drew one of our red cards. We only have Squee and K-Command that care about red. They sacked their mine and discarded the Worm Coil. Lily will make them discard a card, but then they'll go tutor up their Tron piece, drop Ugin, and we are quite dead. Then I think the only thing that we have for Ugin would be slowly killing them with the rack. We'll be hitting them for just about as much as Ugin's going to be hitting us for. Yep. I'm willing to give this like one more turn, but it's not looking good. Alright, so rack deals 2. Ugin's going to be shooting us for 3. We're already behind. And I don't even think we have a good out here. Yep, land's not going to do it. Alright, so positive thing about being red. In the sideboard, we get Blood Moon. We also have Fulminator Mages. This raises our mana curve quite quite a lot, but that's fine. Fatal Push is pretty much god-awful in this matchup. Dark Confidant, they do give us a little bit of time to get together. Unfortunately, this is a target for Smallpox. Our targeted land hate is significantly better than letting them sack whatever they have a redundant piece of, so I'm usually good to take out Smallpox, basically Dark Confidant, so that we make sure we hit our land drops and get up to Fulminator Mage. Blood Moon is just going to slow them down enough that they shouldn't be able to cast anything big because they won't be able to keep it in hand. And then Single Trim, I could see an Inquisition of Kozilek that takes one of their enablers. Alternatively, it's probably just Squee here. We're not really looking to grind out super hard. As long as we get a little bit of a head, we're good. Again, Squee will let us pick him up from the graveyard if he's there during our upkeep, so it's a really good target for... Actually, no, we want Collected Brutalities out. This is a really good target for an additional discard for Collected Brutality as well as Liliana. This just makes it so that we're essentially not discarding every turn. And I'm probably going to keep 2 Smallpox because we can snag an early thing, especially on the play. Fulminator and Blood Moon, we're leaning on really hard here, though. Our Dark Confidant should help a bit, but we did raise our curve, and it's whatever we can do. If we can keep them off Tron for a little bit and then start taxing their hand, we're usually pretty well set. And this time we have more than one land, so it's looking a little bit better. So what this means is turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Smallpox, take whatever land they played on turn 1 if it's relevant when we see their hand. Then we can start Raven's Criming and the Racking. Raven's Crime can be recast by discarding a land, so this hand's looking pretty good. I'd prefer to see Dark Confidant and a Blood Moon, but this is what we signed up for with 8-Rack. We did lose match 1 versus Tron. Raven's Crime is quite interesting in this deck because if we do start to flood out, we can just start discarding and making them discard. If they only have 1 card in hand, it's usually super relevant. But show me what you got. They kept a single land. Alright, Nature's Claim is actually quite good against us, but this single land is going to get wrecked by our Smallpox. I'm not going to allow them to get their Expedition map going. I honestly could care less about the Nature's Claim. Yes, it's going to hurt our rack, but we're going to be able to win. They also probably know because we have red that we have sideboard now, so Blood Moon's potentially an option, which it totally was. And we're hurting ourselves here, but opponent has a single land. I'm 100% making this trade. Seeing as I see the Nature's Claims here, and I can recast Raven's Crime from the graveyard, I'm going to discard the Raven's Crime. It's going to be a bit before the Relic's going to hit it. And I like everything in hand. If they start Nature's Claiming, we're just ahead, so... Woot. Now, there actually might be an argument here to keep the Swamp, just because we are on Blood Moon, but I kind of like having both sources. We do have Fulminators, and I guess those are black as well, but it's whatever. Opponent should make us exile a card. Yep. Oh, they targeted themselves? Interesting. They must not be on Crucible. Mutavault is not bad. Shrieking Affliction can come out. The Rat can come out. And Black Source from Liliana taking over the game. Unfortunately, our game plan is a little different than what I would like. So we're trying to trap cards into their hand, and we're also trying to make them discard. Just because we saw the single lander. Yep, they're cantripping, looking for land drops, and they're not hitting them. Land? Alright. Well, I'll take another Tron piece. Looking at you, Sylvan Scrying. Or Ancient Stirrings. Sylvan Scrying will actually get a land. Ancient Stirrings will probably get a land. Ancient Stirrings comes first, but they have their additional mana. Yeah, it's Sylvan Scrying. Yeah, the rack's not going to be damaging you anytime soon. We need this Lily active. Well, Blood Moon's kind of a fun one. Although we need a basic swamp for Blood Moon to work. Also means Lily can't plus the turn she comes down. And there's no way I'm discarding Blood Moon. So Lily, you can sit there and look pretty for a turn. Your loyalty counters are covering your face, though. I said look pretty. Oblivion Stone? Alright. There's the Blood Moon. Land for turn, and I'd like it if you started discarding, please. I'm expecting Ugin to come down first. If they hit their next 2 land drops, this Oblivion Stone is going to be quite bad for us. Really looking for a K command. That's our out here. Wow, they got rid of the Nature's Claim. They're banking really hard on this Oblivion Stone. There's Tron. They did naturally draw into it. I almost missequenced that. That is real cost to switching decks all the time, but I caught it. So we have 2 Shrieking Afflictions and a Rack. The Rack's going to make them start losing life next turn, assuming that they make a land drop. Shrieking Afflictions won't kick in until they have 0 cards in hand. Well, I guess 1 card in hand. K command, discard, blow up would be so nice here. Mountain isn't terrible. And Liliana probably going to ultimate next turn. If they hit their land, though, it's going to be bad. Land? Awesome. Okay, so I can't let them Oblivion Stone at all, so we just need to ultimate them. Then arrange into 2 piles. You can keep 2 Tron pieces, or you can keep a Tron piece of Sanctum and an Oblivion Stone. You clearly don't have another land, so this seems fine. And they got rid of the Oblivion Stone. Alright, so they are planning on using the other Nature's Claim that they kept to blow up the Blood Moon at some point. And there's Bobby Boy. That should get us our card advantage on so that we can actually start 1-for-1ing and having it matter. Alright. Guess that doesn't work. Thoughtseize you. Ancient Stirrings, Sylvan Scrying. Oh, they discarded both They discarded 3 Nature's Claims under a Blood Moon. Interesting. Alright. Well, goodbye Tron piece. Chip in for some damage. So we know about Karn, Ancient Stirrings, Ugin. This has been such a weird game. Alright, so they're at 4 mana. I still don't want them Ancient Stirrings. That feels like their strongest card. There could be an argument there to take Karn, just because if they actually naturally get into lands, they're fine, but we're drawing multiple cards a turn. Redundant Blood Moon isn't bad. Also a way to get rid of one of their other Ancient Stirrings. And like I said, this is stringing an opponent up on the rack and torturing them slowly. But that's what this deck does. Yep, opponent concedes. So Smallpox actually seemed like it did some stuff there. It made us play a really weird game of 8-rack, but it did some stuff. I'm guessing it's better on the play, but if they're investing in Tron lands early, that might be fine. I'm assuming if we want Smallpox, though, that means that, especially if they're still on Relic, Raven's Crime is coming out. I don't know. This is probably just the optimal configuration, though. I might see this. But that's about it. Oh, I misplayed last game. I should have been holding lands for Raven's Crime. And this hand is awful. So I do see some high-powered cards in here, but this won't matter until they start discarding. And these Lilianas are just going to be discarding each other. It's basically looking at a 5-card hand with 2 uncastable cards. Here is a Rack, a Bob, a Blood Moon, and another Bob. But it's going to have to be Bob, Bob, Blood Moon. I'm fine with that, though. Liliana is actually quite gas with this hand. I do need to find another land and hope they're not on natural Tron, but sometimes Tron stumbles, so that's what we're hoping for this game. Rack comes out early. Always yield. Alright, so hopefully this is a Stirrings and they only had a single Tron land. Alright, they found a power plant. And they have Tron. That's not great. And we found the wrong basic. You could have been a swamp. Alright, so I guess the secret here is figure out if they are on Karn? If I have Blood Moon, I'm basically taking myself out of this game at the moment. I need a swamp. I'd like to have 2, but I really need a swamp. And they just had it. This is not good. Alright, Thought Knot's not horrible. It means that either Lily's going to make them sack it and we get a redraw, or we get a Blood Moon. If we get a Blood Moon, it means that they're probably sitting on a Nature's Claim. Yep, no likey the Blood Moon. Swamp's not bad. Opponent got to see it, which is why I ran it out. Then you just sack your Thought Knot. I really don't want to have to deal with it. And that is being good right there. So, potentially looking at an Ugin. And Ugin's just going to win the game, but if it's not an Ugin, then we have a shot. If it's an Ulamog, that's interesting, because they'll have to hit 2 of our lands. Otherwise, we'll just Lily again and take the win. And by the win, I mean the Blood Moon or Liliana make them sack. Liliana make them sack Ulamog seems quite good. They went and got Sanctum, so they must not be afraid of Fulminator Mage. Yep, there's Ugin. Ugin probably sacks and goes gets Ulamog. Yeah, the Tron Nut draw on the play is quite bad. Yep, there's 3. Those go away. We couldn't even really Blood Moon because they just had to turn 3 Thought Knots here to take it away. We even drew back into it, but it's just not strong enough at the given moment. I guess right now our best bet would be Liliana and a Thoughtseize. So we can take away the Thought Knots here, make Ugin -3 again, then we can Blood Moon. But that's still a game that we're probably not going to win. Alright, so Liliana discard isn't very powerful here. Blood Moon could make it so that they can't Thought Knot Seer. We have a second Swamp, which means we can actually Liliana afterward. But they're just going to nuke it to the ground and then Thought Knot anyway. I can Bob and just expect Thought Knot to take Liliana. There's like no winning lines here. Well, Liliana is our primary game plan here. We have to make opponents sacrifice. So I'm going to take a turn to try to progress this board state, see what happens, and then probably just move on with our lives. Just can't do much about the Tron Nut draw. Because this is turn 4, they've had Disruption. Ugin is close to natural Tron as they can basically get to. And they're sitting on a Stirrings. So the only card I know about is Thought Knot Seer. Alright, so plussing on Lily. Does that change anything? We're still going to get Thought Knot Seer. They're going to take the Blood Moon. Bob comes out. They -3. Yeah, it's fine. Just going to move on with our life. There's not many outs here, and there's no reason to play it out. Alright, so lost to Tron. Not super surprised about that one. They're on the play and had very good hands for both games that they won. We Mana screwed them in game 2, though. That's kind of funny. Liliana's a really good card. I got mine altered. They're pretty. The copies of the rack, though, like we saw in that game, they don't really do a whole lot when they're just sitting out there. You kind of have to hit critical mass and make them discard, get them down to minimal resources, and then start putting the rack effects out. We had like 3 of them, and Ugin came down and just exiled them. And to be fair, that's kind of what Ugin does, but it's hard to act like having 2 Shrieking Afflictions on the field for like 4 turns that didn't do anything is actually a very good strategy in Modern at the given moment, especially because when we're making our opponent discard and their primary game plan is to get their Phoenixes into their graveyard, we're kind of just helping them out with that. This deck is interesting, though. Like, if you know how to pick apart the hand and you hit the right matchups, it does feel like it's a very strong deck, and it occasionally does put up results. Smallpox is a very powerful Magic card. I think a lot of times they end up leaning themselves towards Lingering Souls decks, because you can sack part of a Lingering Souls, discard half of a Lingering Souls. For 2 mana, it does quite a lot and actually gets you to parity pretty quickly. We will take the play. We have a recursible discard. We have Inquisition into Thoughtseize, Shrieking Affliction. I'm quite happy with everything here. I'd love to see a Liliana off the top. Liliana, just get our Squee engine running would be fantastic. But until then, we gotta take a peek, pick apart the hand, do discardy things. Alright, so Faithless Looting is the best enabler here. It's also card disadvantage, though, and we're going for card disadvantage. Manamorphose is the best redraw in this deck. I'm going to be taking Manamorphose here. There could definitely be an argument for Faithless Looting, but they're just going to draw a discard, and then I'm going to take the Manamorphose. They won't be able to do anything. And then we can follow it up with a Thoughtseize and take whatever Faithless Looting drew them into. And then if they end up burning a lot of spells to try to make their 3 cards in a turn. Alright, so they drew Serum Visions. I still think I'd love a Liliana off the top. Or potentially a K-Command. Brutality would be pretty good too. Alright. Well, we'll see if they drew into lands. They put a card on top and a card on bottom. And opponent has an awkward upkeep stop. They must have been flipping a thing in the ice. Oh, Smallpox seems fantastic here. They only had the one land. But they're going to discard the Arc like Phoenix. But they only have one land. Yeah. Alright, Smallpox it is. We get a discard Squee and pick him back up next turn. Sack that guy. And they bend their Arclight Phoenix. Alright, so they probably have at least one land here. Looks like they do. I'd love to pick my Squee back up. And, show me what you got. Okay, so you got your second land, but that's not going to survive for very long. So let's take your Opt. And then Thoughtseize away the... Actually, I'm kind of okay if you keep your Bolts. But I want you to have less cards in hand. I don't know what's correct there. I think at some point I'm supposed to take the Faithless Looting, but when it's card disadvantage, I can't imagine that I want to. Alright, so we know about a Lightning Bolt. And you came just in time. Alright, we've had some pretty good top decks here. Push you. Go ahead. Alright, we got a Squee in hand. Did you really get Thing in the Ice? If they chain together, I can't imagine they can at this point, because they're just going to bolt us in Faithless Looting. I hate this deck so much. And you can see why I'm not a huge fan of this deck in the current meta. Alright, Surgicals would probably be fantastic in this deck. I think we're running Ley Lines. Yeah, we're running 4 Ley Lines. An opponent, dude, the upkeep stops. You're not doing anything. But let's see, I Inquisitioned, I Smallpoxed, I Inquisitioned, I Thoughtseize, and they still brought out a turn 4 Phoenix. And Rocky found a squeaky toy. Well, if we get a land, we're actually still going to be pacing them at the same speed. So Liliana can make them sack or discard depending on the number of cards in hand. Shrieking Affliction is going to be doing 3. Arclight's going to be doing 3. We're currently a turn behind on clock. Alright, another Shrieking Affliction actually means that we're way ahead on clock. It means with one more discard spell, we should actually be able to win the game. Or a land? I'd love a land. Land or discard. That works. Plus, discard Squee, ship it back, and you dead? There we go. Alright. Little surprised we stole that one. And I don't even know what we're supposed to keep here. So Bantu's Last Reckoning can't be correct. This is basically destroy all creatures, skip your next turn. This is destroy all creatures. I have video evidence of me having a Thing in the Ice flipped on me on turn 4 and bringing back 4 Phoenixes. So, I mean, turn 4 for a Damnation seems horrible, especially when they could just bring the Phoenixes back. They end up having Bolts for Bob, so that can't be right. Smallpox is bad against Young Pyromancer, but it's fantastic against Thing in the Ice. Kolaghan's Command is bad against Thing in the Ice, but decent against Young Pyromancer. Fatal Push has to be in here for Thing in the Ice. Raven's Crime seems bad. Collected Brutality hits Young Pyromancer. Also Duresses. Can also snag a Phoenix for a turn. I absolutely hate this deck. I'm guessing this is as good as it's going to get, though. So there might be an argument for Fulminator Mage. I can pick it up with K-Command, try to mana screw them. They can go off with 2 mana, though. They just need a Manamorphose and 2 1-mana spells. We need to get their hand empty as fast as possible, and Raven's Crime will just let them discard their Phoenixes. There might be an argument to have Ensnaring Bridge in the side for this matchup, now that the meta shifted a little bit, just so that they can't attack in. They do run main board of Braids, but I absolutely hate this deck. Alright, so this hand has Thoughtseize, Fatal Push for the Thing in the Ice of the Young Pyromancer. We have to draw into 2 lands for this to be any good. The strength of Thoughtseize being able to take Manamorphose, even on the draw, feels like it's worth hanging on to. It depends on how good of a hand they keep. They decided to keep their 7, and they did it fairly quickly, so they probably have a decent hand. I really don't want to mulligan down, though. Like, we're going to have to stay 1 for 1, otherwise we're not going to be able to keep this. So I'm keeping the 1-lander, but it's a very tentative, I really need 2 lands. So hopefully we draw into 1. And let's see what they can pull off on turn 1. Looks like it's just Serum Visions. Just trying to set up. 1 on top, 1 on bottom. Okay, Mutavault's not a land I was looking for, but it does at least get me closer to Liliana. So let's take a peek. Rowl's a problem. Faithless Ludian's card disadvantage. Thought Scour is super annoying. They don't have another land, but they put 1 on top. So Faithless Ludian's more likely to get them a second land. The second Thoughtseize is pointed directly at Ral. I think the Serum Visions is the best chance they have of sculpting, but Thought Scour is the best chance of going off. I think I'm going to take the Sculptor and ship it back. Then next turn, probably looking at Thoughtseize to take Ral and setting up the rack and hoping we draw a Black Source. So they found a General Mountain. Alright, no Phoenixes so far. But they did get a redraw. Black? Black? Black! Oh, I love you, deck. You're kind of working for me now. Okay, well, they're not representing Spell Pierce or anything. I'm actually going to Thoughtseize first. Oh boy, and they got the Manamorphose. So... oh, I probably want Trinisphere on the side of this deck. So next turn, it's Manamorphose, Faithless Ludian into Thought Scour. I don't like any of that, but I can't deal with Ral. So I think for now, I'm just going to run out the rack and hopefully have Fatal Push for the near future. So they have Manamorphose, Faithless Ludian. They have those 4. Then if opponent dumps their hand, which Faithless Ludian's card disadvantage, Manamorphose is neutral, so they're going to draw a card, Manamorphose still be at 5, Faithless Ludian go down to 4, then Thought Scour stay at 4. Yeah. They're still out of range of the rack, and then we're probably going to have at least 2 Phoenixes coming at us given this Faithless Ludian. Or they're just going to check us first for a Fatal Push. All right. Given the fact that they have a bolt, Liliana needs to get plussed. So what I think I'm just going to do here is Fatal Push and pass. We hit our land drop. Opponent didn't. They're still trying to be conservative about keeping some cards in hand. This was a fine turn for us. Didn't do anything super productive, but it was fine. Opponent also didn't see any new cards, but now they're going for it. There's the Thought Scour. They found a land, and there's the Faithless Looting. No Phoenixes? No Phoenixes. Alright, dodged a massive bolt there. Alright, Thought Scour, Faithless Looting gone. Another Thought Scour, maybe? Yep. No Phoenixes. Alright, I have never survived this long against this deck. This might be a record. Let's take a peek. They did a lot of sculpt in there. Alright, Faithless Looting again is still card disadvantage. Lightning Axe, we have 0 creatures. You can keep that, opponent. I don't even remotely care. The Lightning Bolt can target Lily, though. So they need to find 2 Phoenixes off of that Faithless Looting. Yep, Lightning Axe is gone. The Rack's going to be doing 2 to them. Then they have to hit Manamorphose, basically, in order to go off. And they just played a land. I don't think that was the correct call. That's a good target to discard with Faithless Looting. And it also took him down to be hit by Shrieking Affliction. Getting up to 4 mana is really only there for Arclight Phoenix or potentially Ral. We tax their hand pretty hard, so... Oh, that is a draw. Alright, so Lily discards Squee, it's free. That'll put Faithless Looting in the bin. Then we pass to their draw step. We'll make them discard, shoot them for 2. Yay, K-Command! Yep, there's the game. Alright, I actually don't even feel remotely bad about that one. The Phoenix deck has been the bane of my existence. It's hitting meta shares higher than Splinter Twin, and it's harder to interact with because it doesn't just scoop to creature removal. I understand Spellskite kind of degenerated that deck a bit, but being able to kill a creature uncounterable, or however you even want to phrase it, being able to fog a combat step is doable. Well, the Phoenix deck is just like, well, I can kill you generally, or you can just get comboed out by turn 4 kill with Phoenixes. So, yay. We beat Phoenix. That's a giant win in my deck. I don't care if we go 1-4 at this point. We won. Also, if Tron didn't have their nut draw, we would have put up a decent fight. Alright, and we keep winning die rolls. I am perfectly okay with that. And this hand is beautiful. Oh, we get a Thoughtseize, we get a Smallpox, we get a Fatal Push, a Liliana. This is a well-sculpted 8-rack hand. Opponent, do you like discarding cards? I mean, I like drawing cards, but this is a check. Do you like discarding cards? Alright, looks like it's Stock Storm. So they have 2 lands, Sleight of Hand, Desperate Ritual, Manamorphose has always been a problem in this deck. I'm getting rid of that for sure. And it's going to be hard because they combo through their graveyard, which means as empty as we keep their hand, as soon as they can gifts, we're going to lose. And they drew Serum Visions. Alright, so I think our highest priority here is getting Liliana online. As much as I want the Smallpox, I don't think that's what we want to be doing this turn. So I'm good to Bloodstained Mire and pass. Obviously going to run out the rack. Opponent knows what we're doing now, but that's fine. If they end up playing a Mana Dork that they found off the Serum Visions, then that means that we get a Fatal Push it. If not, Lily's going to come down and start taxing. Alright, and they're not on the Mana Dork plan this turn. So, no Blood Moon's main board, gonna grab a Blood Crypt. Ooh, boy. So I can take Manamorphose. They can Ritual into Gifts next turn, but I don't think that's enough for me to care. I do want to keep the Thoughtseize around, though, so Lily can always minus to take out a Mana Dork. That means Fatal Push is going away. Yep, go ahead and opt, see if you want to discard something else instead. But when we want this game to draw on long and they can win through the graveyard, this is not a great matchup. Yep, the rack's not doing any damage to you yet. Alright, so that means I get to do everything here. Although I'm bad at this game. Thoughtseize first. Alright, unsubstantiate. Do I even remotely care about that? I don't believe so. Actually, yes, I do, because if I plus a Lily at end of turn and they still have unsubstantiate, then I'll end up having to discard the Lily. So take unsubstantiate. That leaves these four. Then get a Smallpox. We'll sack our fast land. Then plus Liliana. Desperate Ritual went away. Manamorphose went away. Interesting. Alright, and ship it back. The rack is officially doing damage. Mutavault has to start getting some beats in, though, because this is not nearly fast enough of a clock. There's the Grape Shot. Mutavault becomes a creature. They kept Electromancer. Alright, so 4 damage a turn. It's kind of achievable. We're on a 4-turn clock. Alright, so Electromancer comes out. Oh, that is perfect timing. Oh, but I can't do anything with Lily if that's the plan. Okay, so we're just going to yield until opponent's draw step. He'll take 3. Target player discards a card. 2 damage to any target. Target player discards a card. 2 damage to any target. Player, target. Pew pew! Okay, command, so good. Drew a land. Inquisition does nothing. Get our beats on. And this is the rack, putting the pressure on. Alright, so no reason to cast the Inquisition. We can just discard it. We get an Alt Lily next turn. The only thing that I think actually kills us here is a Gifts Ungiven, and they probably won't have enough mana to actually pull it off. And I'll never get tired of ulting. Alright, so you can have your 2 of any source, or you can have your 3. One's a basic and one deals damage to you. And then you have no way to come back from this. Mutavault gets in, we'll put you down to 1. Yep, that's the game. Alright, Storm, Leyline of the Void, because we will literally die if that's their game plan. Bantu's Last Reckoning could potentially be a consideration for Empty the Warrens. I don't think... Well, we actually lose pretty hard to the go-wide strategy. I think that's going to be a damnation at Bantu's. Fulminator Mage is in here for Tron and other unfair strategies. Opponent won't actually be able to kill our Dark Confidant. It'll lower the clock against us by quite a bit, but will make our 1-for-1s actually worth more. Smallpox is great if they're on the Mana Dork plan, especially if they tap out on turn 2 and then we Smallpox. I think that's enough reason to keep all 4 in. If they end up going for Empty the Warrens, it's a horrible card. But whatever there. Raven's Crime feels like it loses value. They just get to discard something that they get back when they pass in Flames, assuming that we don't have a Leyline. We have a lot of cuts to make, though. Collective Brutality is quite good. Kills Electromancer, also duresses. I'm guessing that the Bantu's Last Reckoning is just trying too hard. We can trim a squee because we're bringing in a lot. The Fatal Push is probably the consideration for Collective Brutality versus Fatal Push in this matchup. We're going to end up having 7 cards that can destroy a lot of their mana dorks. I could probably see this split happening, just because this can hit a Brawl and basically these can't. These 4 can't, these can. And that's a lot of removal for their mana dorks. Yeah, it might even be that. Then we still need a couple of trims. Might actually just be the K commands. They don't have many artifacts that we care about. The instant speed discard's cute, but it's not always relevant, especially when they have gifts at instant speed and everything like that. We went really light on the mana dork removal, but having a Dark Confidant that they can't interact with seems quite good. Lily can also remove a mana dork, so we should be fine there. They have 8 creatures we care about. Alright, and this looks fine. So it's not great, but it's a turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 we're doing 2 things, and we have a Leyline. They can Echoing Truth this, but who really cares? We're going to start Thoughtseizing as early as turn 1 anyway. You, sir. I'd like to see what you got. Alright, so they brought in the typical pieces of the puzzle when they can't go off through their graveyard. Brawl is their strongest thing and we don't have a current answer for it, so they'll get an opt and then they can try to set up for something, but they have nothing to set up for yet. So goodbye, Brawl. They also only have 1 cantrip and 2 lands, so they've got to start investing towards lands if they want this to be a long game. Are they really going to ritual into a gifts here? Or just the pieces of the puzzle? Okay. Okay, so Serum, Reef, and Island went to the graveyard. And they use Manamorphose and pieces of the puzzle. Although, what are we doing here? Are we bobbing? They brought in Madcap Experiment. Okay, so that's actually going to require a discard spell. So let's go ahead and dismiss this. We can Thoughtseize. Repeal's fine. Yeah, we don't have a current answer to Madcap. We showed them a Kolgon's command. Why would they bring in Madcap? That's fine. We'll just take it here, not worry about it. They can repeal our rack, don't really care. If they do, we'll just bob and rack. It seems like a fine turn. Alright, we got our card advantage on. Successfully picked apart the opponent's hand. Hello, Baral. I feel like my Bob's going to be better than your Baral, but... Alright, what are the odds we die here? So they can repeal the Leyline, Desperate Ritual into Manamorphose, into a Gifts Ungiven. I think we have at least one more turn, and then hopefully they go for Empty the Warrens. So I'm good to make my land drop and ship it back. Fortunately, I have a lot of lands here. This is when Raven's Crime would be pretty good. I think we only trimmed one, though. No, we took them both out. Alright, opponent, what do you think you can do? You've got a bounce, you've got a Desperate Ritual, and 3 unknowns. Well, that's one unknown. Please repeal. Oh. Alright, that works. Yeah, I want Bob to flip something. Alright, the fact that they hardcast Platinum Empyrean means that their other 3 Madcap experiments are dead. Shrieking Affliction's a pretty decent one. I actually want to cast Shrieking Affliction this turn, so we get an Urborg. Then Damnation and make opponent sad. So they have a repeal that we know about and an unknown, but Platinum Empyrean is gone forever. Our rack is sort of online. And they invested a lot of cards to get that Platinum Empyrean out. Smallpox seems fine, although I'm going to try to wait until they put something else out. They're probably going to have a Mana Dork any moment, and I'd prefer to have 0 cards in hand when I cast it. Yep, repeal's fine. Go ahead and opt. There's the Electromancer I was expecting. Now they don't have repeal to protect it. And it's fine, I'll just discard the extra land. So black, black. I actually want to thin my deck. Black, black, Smallpox. Okay. When I have this many mana sources, that actually doesn't help much. And a wipe away? Alright. Sacrificing the tapped basic. I actually do want to fetch here to thin the deck. Go grab a basic. Activate Mutavault. Replay the rack. Chip in for 1. And now rack's doing 1 damage. We just need to find a Liliana. Opponent on Storm, who needs a critical mass of cards, has lost a good critical mass of cards. They do still have another Manamorphose to go get, but Bob's a fine one. Slow, painful death. That's what this deck does. You're taking 5 a turn, though. Really speeding it up. Should probably be keeping... opponent put 2 cards on top of their library. And this last one was 1 on top, 1 on bottom. Wait, they had another Platinum Empyrean? That's so weird. Alright, Chieftain Reef, Platinum Empyrean, and Island went to the graveyard. So they have a pieces and an empty. Okay, Fatal Push doesn't actually help me here. Liliana does. Then opponent has to empty just to get 2 chump blockers, so I can't imagine that they have a long-term plan. They had an unsubstantiate? Alright, so empty for 2. The more cards they run out, the more damage they're going to take from the rack, though, so perfectly okay by me. Gonna make them discard their last card and then die to the rack in Shrieking Affliction. Yeah, this is going to make them take more damage than what they were going to chump block with. Alright, currently up to 2-1. And putting up some results. Again, not too surprised this deck is actually like borderline competitive. It's one of the lower tiers as far as popularity goes. It does have a decent power level, but when we're 1-for-1ing in Modern, it's a little hard to make it count. You have to successfully pick apart their hand with your discard spells. That being said, I did not think Storm was a very good matchup. Alright, so we have discard, kill, rack, squee. This is passable. I can't imagine actually like shipping this back. It doesn't do anything super aggressive, but it's strong enough. Plus we're on the draw, so we might be able to see something additional. Opponent mulligans to 6, decides to keep. And card on top. Oh, it's Tron again. Alright, so we have Inquisition. This hand is awful against Tron. Tron, Tron, Tron. Why do you have to be no fun? And they have Tron. Alright, well, they've already assembled Tron here. They have Tower Mine, and this is going to go get Power Plant. So I'm actually going to take the Oblivion Stone, and hopefully they're going to be off of a finisher for a little while. Yep, there's the land. And we have 2 racks here. Alright, life total typically doesn't matter here. When they win, they're going to win with a big finisher. So I'll go ahead and get my red source, just run out of rack. Run out of rack. Opponent knows what we're doing, but if they make their land drop, go Sylvan Scrying. This unfortunately puts it in hand, so they'll be able to have Tron and hold on to 3 cards. Yep, there's the power plant. There's Tron. What finisher did you get? Karn? Are we done here? Wormcoil. Alright, as far as finishers go, that's almost okay to deal with. So we can Squee and Chump block, and then Liliana. And if they don't draw another finisher, we're kind of okay. Then the following turn we can Liliana, make them sack, destroy the life linker. We'll lose Liliana, but we'll have dealt with the Wormcoil. The turn 3 Squee. Yep, good play from opponent. They sacrifice the Chromatic Star to draw a card to get back up to 3 with the triggers unstacked from the rack. They're in their upkeep, though, so Sylvan Scrying is off the table until they play out their forest. Alright, down to 3 cards in hand. Yep. Squee, I'm proud of you. Alright, so Shrieking Affliction is actually an endgame here. So let's go ahead and take our turn getting rid of a Wormcoil. Then we're going to slowly chip away at their lives, so let's take the life linker away. It might have been correct sequencing there to let them attack. If they only set 1 at Liliana, I could protect it, but I kind of want to get my F6 value. I can't imagine we win at this point. Yep, there's Ugin. I'm done. Alright, so Tron, like last time. Blood Moons, Fulminators, Bobs. Collective Brutality loses a ton of value. Fatal Push is next to worthless. I think last time I ended up trimming a Raven's Crime and a Squee. Because destroying an artifact has a lot of value. Inquisition has a little bit less than Thoughtseize, but looks about like what we want. I can imagine that Raven's Crime is a little bit better than Squee here. They're both similar concepts of these cards let us grind out. If we end up getting lands, Raven's Crime will just help empty the hand faster. Squee makes it so that we actually keep our real cards while we're making them discard with Liliana. They're both kind of just fringe and not super amazing, though. If they end up hitting Tron, they're just going to win, and we're trying to play a long, drawn-out, grindy game while they're playing a big game that they'll eventually get to. This is turn 1 Rack, turn 3 Fulminator. That's not good enough. This is a little bit better. So we can take a look at their hand. If it's important on whatever they play, we can Smallpox. If not, hopefully draw into another land in Fulminator. I'm good shipping away the Rack for now. And what did you keep, opponent? You kept a single lander? Okay, so I'm going to get rid of Sylvan Scrying here because next turn we're Smallpoxing. They can put a star out for all I care. They'll need to find another land before it matters. Yep. Ooh, Bob's pretty good. Hope we get another land. In the meantime, though, our current plan is land destruction, which means Thoughtseize goes away. There goes their Karn. Then if we get a land, Bob should pull us ahead. If they're able to chain this together, I'm going to be sad. Alright, that's good. That's really good. Now our life total is going to matter. Ended up getting the basic for both Blood Moon and the fact that Bob's going to be dealing quite a bit of damage to us over a couple of turns. Oh, Ancient Stirrings, that's going to find a land. Yep, there's Buried Ruin. It's not a Tron land, though. Alright. Poke the land. Now, Kolaghan's command will let us pick up the Fulminator, and yeah, opponent's seen enough. Alright, I think that's as optimal as we're going to get. Being on the play really made that happen, especially the fact that our opponent kept a one-lander. Active Bob, 2 land destructions against a single land keep. Pretty decent. Currently 1-1 versus the Tron Menace. Yeah, I don't think we had anything else that we could bring in here that was actually important. The Collective Brutalities are probably the closest, but I'd rather keep one of these 2 in before that. This just doesn't really do anything against them. It could potentially snag a Sylvan Scrying when we're on the play, but that is just awful. That is so bad. That requires our opponent to have a pretty terrible hand, and they kept, but this is where we're at. Hopefully we draw a discard spell. Or they just aren't running exactly as smoothly as they want to be. That gives us a plan B. Yeah, not having a discard spell is kind of rough there. So we end up having 8, 10, 13, 17, 21 1-drops. To be fair, we trimmed a lot of those. 3 Fatal Pushes and a Raven's Crime. Still, I think that's 18. Took Spatial Contortion. I don't know what to make of that. So, opponent might have run out the Forest as protection against the Smallpox, which works. They might have brought in the Spatial Contortion expecting to kill Bob, but we don't run a lot of creatures. I think I'm still just on Smallpox and then follow it up with Bob, because they're clearly showing a weaker hand, or they're showing a hand tuned to what we did last game, which is unfortunately our plan this game, but discard basic Mountain. It might have been correct to discard Bob there. But we have our 3 mana. Sorry, I actually don't have a deck list feature. I do have the link in the video stream, or we have this guy right here. Alright, well, hopefully opponent's just on a single land here. Well, they had another mine, and there's a Sylvan Scrying. So they are quite close to Tron. Thoughtseize is pretty good, though. So Bob is probably our strongest play, but they're just going to Spatial Contortion it, so it's looking like I actually might want to slow roll Bob. Let's go ahead and Thoughtseize. Worst case, we take the Spatial Contortion and open the way for Bob to land. They have Tower. We knew that from the tutor. Yeah, so we have at least 2 turns. Spatial Contortion goes away. We can Bob next turn. Alright, cycling their sphere. Dropping their tower. They had another Sylvan Scrying. Alright, let's go Fulminator. Or Blood Moon. I actually think oh, Blood Moon's gonna hurt really bad. Alright, did they draw a finisher? So I know about the power plant, I know about Ghost Quarter and Thragtusk. I don't think Thragtusk is enough of a finisher I care. So I might just be on Lily and discard Bob. Or just Lily mana efficiently for this turn. Make them sacrifice. Thragtusk will leave a 3/3 that can't be killed by anything I've got. They'll discard Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter can get us a swamp. Yeah. Just mana efficient Lily this turn. No productive use of her. We're currently behind on cards, and opponent has filler cards they're okay discarding. Alright, an Expedition map can go get a Forest for Thragtusk. Blood Crypt isn't very good, so it can get discarded to Liliana. Ooh, a couple of rough draws here. Alright, Bob. It's kind of fun you're back here. They could always Expedition map for Sanctum, but that's not going to help him cast Thragtusk. Yep, they got the basic forest. Alright, what did you find? Looks like it just... Oh, it's a worm coil. Alright, had a Shrieking Affliction and another Bob. So... sack your worm coil before you have a Thragtusk to protect it. And then this time we are actually going to let the tokens figure out who they're attacking. I think Liliana is quite important to what we're doing at the moment. The Thragtusk is going to be hard to stay on top of as well, and there's Ugin. Alright. Tron Menace takes it. When we have a slow game plan, it just doesn't really help. That was a quick one. Alright, reset match record, update overall. And this one is for the treasure chest. This is turn 1 Fatal Push on the play. We have a curve, but it doesn't really do anything. I prefer to draw these later in the game with this deck. I think we're going to have to take the mulligan. And this is significantly better. And we're going to have to fetch on turn 1, so it doesn't matter. Alright, opponent keeps 6 and puts a card on top. Let's see what you're on. Burn, and I just Thoughtseized. Okay. Oh boy, this is bad. We even have Smallpox in our hand. So, we don't have double black, Burrow's Charm represents the most damage. Goblin Guide's hopefully going to eat the smallpox whenever we get our second swamp. Bolt's the most flexible. Ooh, Helix is going to make it so that our attrition plan is going to be awful. Alright, so Bolt's most flexible. They do have a tap land, though. Yeah, looks like it's Bolt here. This is going to be a rough one. Just glad I didn't get a Blood Crypt. So if they draw their land and put out Goblin Guide, we don't draw Swamp. Mutavault's looking like a pretty good chump blocker. I don't want to lose a land that way, but it's probably just going to need to happen. On the plus side, they should be emptying their hand for us. And opponent's in a hold. Root Brown Crag in Burn seems weird. It's like it's a budget list. They're not playing the MPS Bolts. They do have the Helixes, though. When you're counting to 20 as fast as possible, tap land feels super bad, though. Alright, so there's black. I can take their only land, or I can try to get a 3 for 2 with the Goblin Guide. Yeah, I think taking their only land is our fastest clock. It's painful, but it's where we're at. Keep the Mutavault because it can attack, actually try to keep us in this race, can also block. Yeah, that just feels like such a bad land. Alright, and they discarded Boros Charm, so they must not expect to see any lands anytime soon. Yeah, I gotta run this out with the Mutavault summoning sick. And I don't think opponent knows what we're doing. If you're pausing to read the rack, it means that you never had to play against it. And when our game plan is destroy your lands and keep cards in your hand, that's painful. We need a Liliana off the top, and then hopefully a Shrieking Affliction, maybe? If they're running this much green, it means that they're on Destructive Revelry, though. They probably also consider Smash the Smithereens. Oh, an opponent just scoops it up. Alright, well, we have 3 Collective Brutalities. That's what we've got going for us here. Bob is terrible. Thoughtseize is less than ideal. I know a lot of people make the argument that this is 2 damage for 3 damage, but when you're losing a card out of that exchange, it's just not worth it. I'd much rather have like a vanilla 2/2 Fulminator Mage. Given their burn, they shouldn't be using their graveyard. Damnation and Bantu's Last Reckoning are just horrible board clears for 1-drops. Blood Moon, like, it's better than Thoughtseize, but it's not good. I think we're just going to have to run like this. Did not come prepared for this matchup. Need a little bit more life gain. Rakdos doesn't have a ton of it, but 4th Collective Brutality in the board would be pretty good. Oh yeah, that is just painful. Let's see, if they're on red-green, that means that they might be on a Tarka's Command, or potentially Wild Nicodle, but you wouldn't be running check lands for that, you'd just be running shock lands. Yeah, this is looking bad. Luckily we stole game 1. We know what we need to do for game 2 or 3. So, Inquisition into Shrieking Affliction. Liliana is probably one of the best cards in this matchup. We have a K command to get rid of an attacker. Yeah, think this is what we want to do. And there's a Swift Sphere. I'd love to see another Smallpox. Alright, what'd you keep? Alright, so they're basically on blanks. They did keep lands this time, though. They learned their lesson. Yeah, they're doing check lands and fast lands. Typically, you want to choose one or the other. Oh, there's a brutality. Alright. They left mana up. So what I'm afraid of here is... Oh, they probably didn't have spells to cast. Okay, kill the creature, duress. I can discard both Shrieking Afflictions. I can't Liliana yet. The Searing Blaze is going to be in their hand until the end of time. Or at least until Lily's active. I think we want to keep one Shrieking Affliction, so we can just Duress and Drain. I'm okay taking one. Worst case, we take the Searing Blaze, still take a card out of hand, make our Shrieking Affliction better. Make it one less discardable card to Liliana. I drew another land. Alright, that was my bad. I should have gone for the kill. What the heck? The new goblin? Okay, this must be some weird budget version. It also means K-Command's going to be able to make them kill the Swift Spear and discard a land. Yeah, it's a 1-mana 1/1 haste. I'd assume that you'd want the goblin from Ixalan, if that's what you're doing. But I'll go ahead and make you discard and kill Swift Spear. I can't believe this is in the 2/2 bracket. I must have gotten down paired to like a new person in the entry. Alright, well, I will happily take one. Oh, that's awkward. Can't activate Lily. What I can do is I can Shrieking Affliction and block with Mutavault. Yeah, I feel like there's so many better choices. Alright, well, that's not pointed at Lily. Alright, well, you get to activate, but guess you don't want to? Okay. And that seems like a pretty good one for 2 modes. I know about an Inspiring Vantage, I don't know about anything else. But if I draw a swamp, I want to cast it, so let's take a look. Really need to find myself a finisher. Did you keep a bolt? If this is a spell, you're taking 3 next turn. Did you AFK? So, while opponent's tanking, what else could we put in this deck that would actually matter versus burn? Eidolon of Rhetoric really hurts this deck. It's super bad. The 4th Collective Brutality somewhere in the list seems like it would be pretty good. I honestly don't think we want any of the random black life gains unless it was something like a gifted Aetherborn just for this matchup. The 2/3 body would be relevant for 2 mana. The Death Touch would be kind of relevant. It'd end up being a 1-for-1 removal if they either burn it or block. There's also not a lot of spaces in this deck as it is. I know a lot of people aren't running red in 8-rack. The Squee is kind of just my own taste. We did cast it against Tron, but it's not likely you even want to cast it. It's there for the Liliana attrition, so you could potentially have one, but there's no way to tutor him. The K commands are so good. Instant speed discard, just great. I really did like the Fulminator. It might just be because we played against Tron twice, and those are our only match losses, but Fulminator seems like a really good card, especially for splashing red for Kolaghan's command so we can pick it back up. Lily Last Hope would also probably be pretty good in the sideboard for burn. Be able to pick up creatures, although this opponent left in Syrian Blaze, and that doesn't seem like the right choice. I always do love the Blood Moon sideboard plan. Like, it just can host some decks. It also gave us an edge against Tron, although that does feel horrible, so bad. Maybe needs to be a Crumble to Dust instead of a Blood Moon. Or maybe just not try to get cute with Fulminator Mage. Not sure what to say about this opponent. He might just be doing the salty disconnect, being new to MTGO. We're sitting on another Collective Brutality and Liliana. Like, things are looking pretty good. It'd be interesting if Shrieking Affliction wasn't 3 life loss, but maybe Drain for 1 or maybe Drain for 2. I could see Drain for 1 if they have 2 cards in hand. That'd actually be really good. Yeah, Thoughtseize feels so awkward here. Well, trying to figure out if I just need to kill the stream. Like, this is looking like it's a win, but opponents just squadding. Inactivity timeout. Alright, so it looks like it's a 10-minute inactivity timeout before they end up losing the match. Really can't imagine you guys want to stick around for that, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and put up the starting screen, and if they come back, I'll pick it back up for YouTube. You can just skip ahead, but this is looking like we ended up 3-2ing with the rack. I guess I can do a little bit more of my wrap-up because we did see most of our matches. So Lily's great. She's the reason this deck works. I know a lot of people want to buy into this deck to start off because it sounds fun and interesting, and they're always wondering what the budget considerations can be. We can probably get away without the Collective Brutalities. You probably want to rest somewhere in the board if you're getting away with that. The Kolaghan's commands, again, you don't need to be red for this list. It was my personal preference to run it, and it's pretty much just to cast Blood Moon and Kolaghan's command. It just gives you a little bit more of an edge, and Blood Moon is just a fantastic sideboard card. The Kolaghan's commands being instant speed to allow you to have your opponent discard during their draw phase, so if it's anything but an instant, you're still going to be able to get them to discard it. We ended up doing that against Storm. It's quite powerful. It did what we wanted it to do, but it might not be worth the inconsistencies. I believe the other lists are actually just running the 4 Collective Brutalities and potentially the Dark Confidants main board. The Bob is in here for grinding. You might be able to get away with a Phyrexian Arena, because we do try to take the game to be long. We try one-to-one interactions until we can eventually start grinding out with Liliana. So if budget's a consideration, Bob can probably be Phyrexian Arena. The ley lines can be anything. Leyline, sadly, these days is actually the budget version of Surgical. If there's a reprint, that's probably going to change. Surgical is really good because your opponent's discarding cards, you're taking them. You can Surgical them, get rid of their win conditions. A lot of linear decks can't get away with having part of their combo removed. So that all seems fine. Leyline did show work against Storm. Fulminators actually dropped a lot in value. They're pretty decent, but Being mono black is the big appeal there. You need some way to destroy lands. Sinkhole isn't modern legal, so he does the job. Liliana is necessary, though. She's ran away so many games for us tonight. The 8 effects of the rack are just... It's the only reason this deck works. Again, this does feel like a meta-dependent deck. If there's a lot of Tron, clearly you're not going to make a lot of advantage, but being able to discard key pieces, put them off, this is kind of a monocolored Jund. That's not a great comparison, but we go to top decks and we top deck harder. We also punish them for going to top decks. Smallpox, great card. Discards, discard. Removal. Mutavaults are also pretty necessary. Since we're black-red, we might be able to do Lava Claw reaches since we don't care about the typing of Mutavault. But being able to swing in and actually change the clock a little bit when you're top decking is how this deck finishes. And I think that's it. I don't have much else to say. It's a fun deck. It works. It is kind of grindy, though. And if you are interested in sticking around for YouTube, feel free to skip ahead. But I think I'm going to call a stream there. Thanks for watching, everyone.